Anxiety recovery can be a very isolating and lonely experience. And you may feel like you're the only one going through this. In this video, I'm going to be talking with other members that are on this journey that are a few steps ahead. This way you can find inspiration, recognize you're not alone, and more importantly, focus on long-term freedom. Let's get it started. So everyone in this round table has been part of the mentorship. So I'd like to introduce you to them. I have Ray, Cesar, Nico, and Jeremiah. Welcome, guys. I guess I'll start off with you, Cesar. At what point did you realize this was anxiety?
So I'm talking about just goes when I realized it was anxiety, I think I knew pretty early on that it was anxiety. I just didn't have confidence or belief that I can truly get out of it. I was convinced that it was something I was going to have to live with forever. Because I did get better, but it was just never fully gone. And there were times where it was really good and it was really low, and then there were times where it just come back and just starting the whole cycle again. When did it start? Is that what the question was?
At what point did you realize, because I remember I went to doctors, and no matter what they told me, I didn't believe them. I was like, no, this isn't anxiety. Because I'd experienced anxiety before. I'm like, yo, I've been nervous. I wasn't born yesterday, but this was something else. So I just never wanted to believe it.
I think it was pretty early on. And I go back and forth. Sometimes I'm like, I kind of get mad at myself. And other times I'm like, no, this is what, it's helped me get better. It's the fact that I knew it was anxiety pretty early on. I just didn't fully accept it, I guess you can say. And I didn't, I knew it was anxiety, but the way to get out, I wasn't convinced that allowing was the way to get out, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I knew it was anxiety, but I thought maybe my diet was going to make me get better, or supplements, or my lifestyle in general. Mm-hmm. So pretty early on, I didn't know it was anxiety. Just didn't know how to get out of it fully.
And guys, feel free to chime in on top of one another. It's totally cool. Jeremiah, what about you?
At first, it started off with a panic attack, and when that happened, I was convinced it was like a heart attack or I was having a stroke or something. And I remember at the time, I was with my mom at church, and just all of a sudden, man, I just felt just completely out of the ordinary. I was dizzy, felt like just I wasn't myself, Mm-hmm. And then that's when my heart palpitated and I was having all these crazy sensations. And I was convinced it was a heart attack for sure. And I'm sure like a lot of people that get this, they're truly convinced it's a heart attack or a stroke or whatnot. And so I remember going to my mom hey, I'm having a heart attack. And I was barely even able to talk to her. I was just telling her, hey, I'm having a heart attack. And she looked at me and she knew I was perfectly, healthy. So she was like, hey, just trying to calm me down. But
at what age? At what age?
At 14, dude, I was very, very young, very young. And from that point on, I was scared when it would happen again. And of course, and then that's when I started falling into the cycle. Yeah. And I had even more symptoms come up, There's just a long list. You can go down a very long list of symptoms that, that you'll experience, a lot of bodily sensations, as you'd call it.
So then what was the point for you where your anxiety, where you start shifting in terms of your response, in terms of, okay, no, this isn't actually something physical. This may actually be anxiety. When did that happen?
When I started looking up the symptoms I was experiencing and Googling them, and it all just led to anxiety. So it resulted in, anxiety. And so then I was like, okay, well, this is anxiety. And then I just did my own research on it. And I was like, well, it's anxiety. So and then that kind of gave me an idea of what I was having. So I was a little bit more comfortable. It's not something too bad that's going to affect my health or anything like that. So then I just lived on with it, and it was all a bunch of ups and downs with it. There would be times where it would be really bad, depending on certain, stressful situations, it would heighten. And so, yeah, it just would just go up. It was just like an up and down affair with anxiety. Yeah.
I remember for me, the lowest part of my anxiety was I came back to Austin. I used to live in Canada, and I left everything. I left my furniture there, my clothes there. I just took a one-way ticket, and I thought I was going to come back. And I had been here for almost a year, and I'd gotten worse. I had lost like 45 pounds. I was like 125. I hadn't worked for almost like a year, it felt like. And I had trouble like even looking through these windows would like give me anxiety. Nico, what was the worst like when you were going through this? Like what was kind of like your lowest point?
I'm not necessarily too sure. And in terms of like a low point for it, because it all kind of felt like it all made sense in the overarching context, but I think it seemed like it was one of those things where it was like slowly, but then all at once. And so I think probably the lowest was when it was like happening more frequently. Mm-hmm. When it's like I've had a panic attack before, I've felt like I've even experienced like depersonalization or unreality in the past as well, but I was never really experiencing it where it was happening multiple times a day to where it was like really becoming crippling, basically, that I wasn't really able to like function in the way that I was able to do so before, because prior to that moment where everything kind of just hit all at once, and it was almost like, as opposed to these individual symptoms happening like sporadically at different points in time, it was almost like they were all happening at the same time. You know what I mean? And like that's probably when it got the worst for me. I don't know if there was much of like an external context for why it happened all at the same time, but I mean, the pandemic obviously like was a big part of it. The entire thing with COVID, you're sitting there, you're now isolated inside of your home, and you're alone with all of the things that you've been avoiding. Now you're set kind of in this pressure cooker of like, how are you going to respond to this now that you have no choice but to respond to it, And
so, Ray, you and I had met like during the pandemic. How did the pandemic affect kind of your journey?
I guess the pandemic did kind of roll me up a little bit, when you see all the crazy stuff going on. But I fell into this before the pandemic, so I knew that it was like anxiety. I just didn't know that anxiety had so many like symptoms, man. Like, I thought it was just like, it was like, first it was like the symptoms of all kinds of like body and like head, and then it went to just the intrusive thoughts, was probably my lowest point. And just getting control of those but I don't know, the pandemic didn't really affect me too much. Of course we worry, if we got COVID, so sometimes I fell down that rabbit hole a few times, but
it's crazy how it like for like every person out there, it's just one certain symptom that really drives them away, like drives them off, that puts them at a really low point. Yeah. Like for me, it was digestive issues. Mm-hmm. Like could not eat, man. Food wouldn't go down, and it was a real bad deal because I lost a lot of weight, and I really could, and I was sensitive to a lot of foods that I really enjoyed eating, like coffee. Couldn't have that. It would always make me sick. A lot of fried foods. Wouldn't even touch any of that. Because man, it would just mess me up and would not feel good for the rest of the day.
For me, it was digestive issues as well, and that's why we kind of like related a lot when you joined, because I felt like you were kind of like a younger version of me. But it was like, it's like anxiety is one of those things where Ray's right. It's like it creates the most bizarre symptoms. I feel like, don't you feel like when we grew up, we learned about the mind and then we learned about the body and we kind of separate it.
Yeah.
And then I think the thing that really throws us off when we had anxiety was there was no separation. It was like there was physical symptoms. And so when you think it's anxiety, oh, I'm just nervous. Oh, but it actually creates really strong physical symptoms that are fueled by the thoughts. And so for me, it was nausea, even though I'd never thrown up. And it was just, like I had this crazy theory I was telling you guys that I thought my digestive issues was causing my brain fog and my DPDR. What was some of yours, like most bizarre symptoms, Nico?
I had these, I definitely was having digestive problems. One of the ones that was just very weird was in the morning when I would wake up, I would have muscle tremors between my shoulder blades for like the first 5 minutes when I woke up, and I had no idea why. I told like all of the, I don't know how many doctors that I went to about it, and none of them really had an answer for me, at least, well, they did. I just didn't like the one they were giving me, which was that I was anxious. But yeah, that one was probably the one that was like the strangest to me, because I could understand, even in the context of anxiety, why I was having the stomach stuff. Like that made sense to me in some way. The other one, the muscle tremors, like in a very localized place and at a very specific time, like that seemed super strange. And so I don't know, like kind of earlier you were saying like, when did you realize it was anxiety? I don't know if I ever did. If I ever did actually realize that it was anxiety, because there were all of these strange, very disconnected symptoms from one another, and it took a while. It took really until working with you to put them all in one category, as opposed to attacking each one of them as an individual entity. It's like I think you mentioned it throughout, but like it's significantly easier and way less overwhelming to start tackling those things when it's one problem, as opposed to like I have digestive issues, I'm getting dizzy all of the time. Like that was another one too. I was getting I think it's an actual like immune system issue that people can have, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. So when they go from like sitting to standing or moving up, like they get head rush and they get super dizzy. That was another one that was happening to me like for like 2 months or something like that. Yeah, it's like, and it's so weird because like that's the thing, is that I was doing that and I was having that experience, and that's one of the super strange things about anxiety, and one of the pervasive things about it is that it makes you feel like you're the only person that's happening to, even till this moment right now when everybody seemed to connect with it. I was the only one feeling that way, which isn't the case. Like it's not the case. It's funny, but yeah, that's kind of how it works. You don't recognize how normal these very abnormal symptoms are.
Yeah, I remember I actually say it in some of my videos, but I heard you say it once, which was anxiety makes you very myopic. And it almost makes you very narcissist in a way where it feels like, because it's like, and like you're going through it and you feel like you have the worst. So even if other people have it, it's like, no. Mine is like definitely the worst. Yep. Cesar, you coach with me. Yeah. What are some of the biggest roadblocks you see as you're kind of helping people? And you guys also know a lot of the members too. And I'm sure you guys saw some of the, like, it's very easy to see other people's roadblocks. It's kind of hard to see your own. But what are some of the ones? Because
told me plenty. I know the one that you said to me often.
I think it's what Nico said about it's all, at the end of the day, it's all anxiety, and sometimes especially because I went through it, it's hard to believe that it can cause crazy symptoms. So when when our clients or our members come up and they say, hey, I'm feeling this, is this normal? And it's like, yes, but they're not convinced. So it's how do I convince them that it is? And really, there really is no way to convince them. It's just, you have to give them the answer, and it's up to them whether or not they're gonna, believe in it and allow it, like you can say. So I'd say that's the biggest roadblock, is just trying to get them to finally understand that it's anxiety and not something else.
And like just fully accepting it.
Yeah.
That's accepting is like super simple, and people make it they make it super complicated. Like just simply allowing it is going to help me get better.
Yeah, and I think I do a good job in trying to simplify, because we have the other coaches who are great, and sometimes they can explain things that I can't, like the way they do it. But the way I say it, and it's not to sound bad, but like I dumb it down, because it really is. It's and I told this to you one time. Right? Like, hey, Nico, just dumb it down a little bit. It's not that.
Yeah.
It's not that complicated. It's just you're thinking about it too much, and
And Nico, like he's a really smart guy.
Yeah.
Like,
Nico brings up some wild observations that even I'm like, whoa, like dang, dude. He was like, dude, I read it from this book. I was like, damn, dude, I don't remember that. Like that's wild. Like
I think one of the things that's weird with it, and probably the thing that was, I fell into this trap too, is that like I think a lot of times people see something that's simple and they don't think that there's any complexity behind it. Just because it's simple doesn't mean that it's easy. It's simple but not easy, and like that's kind of like a consistent mantra throughout like a lot of what it is that you preach and what it is that you talk about to the people in the group. And you as a coach, I've heard you say something very similar as well. And it's weird. Like I don't know. I know that intellectually. I know that it's like simple things can be incredibly complex. But in the moment, like you're saying, that myopia, like I feel like it's I feel like it's kind of like when you're driving in traffic, you know, and you're like, if you're sitting there on top of the other person's bumper, and then you're trying to figure out which lane is moving the fastest, you can't really see it. But if you're yards back, you can see very easily which one is moving. You have better context for what it is that's actually happening. And at the time, like, I don't know, with anxiety, it's kind of weird because I feel like chronic anxiety, you actually overcome fear as opposed to enduring it, you know, and it's like enduring fear is like, how long can you bear the weight of something? Whereas overcoming it is really more so about understanding the nature of it and accepting it as it is, letting it be whatever it is. And I think a lot of like the recovery process was just more backing off of things as opposed to like my proclivity to jump in and actively fix it. It was more about like, there's nothing to fix, let it do its thing.
Just live life, man. Just gotta keep going.
Yeah.
And life goes on. I mean, you gotta just do things regardless of whatever you feel. And I mean, that's what helped me, was just continuing on, going to work, whether that's going out with friends, and just living in the moment that you have really bad anxiety, or if it's not so bad, you know, great. If it is really bad, that's cool too. But you gotta just keep going.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be thinking that, you know, if I just go out go out and have fun, you know, it's just gonna get better from there. It's not. You're just gonna have to.
It's up and down.
Yeah. You got it. Yeah, it's up and down affair, and it just keeps going from there. And I think because like back then, like whenever I first started to like go out more and probably started drinking a bit more too with friends, that's when I get the most anxious, because you know I'm going out and I'm having, you know, anxiety, and also the alcohol triggers it, you know. Well, and we talk about triggers, right? You know, alcohol, caffeine, and so for me, alcohol. I was at a point where I was doing well, but then I actually started going out more, so because I was doing well, so I went out more with friends, I drank, and then the more I did that, like the more I started feeling anxious, because you know, alcohol, you know, they say that alcohol, you know, gets you anxious, you know, you get anxiety from it.
So it can be confusing because you think like you're going the wrong way, but you're not. Just how in the beginning when you went through it over, you know, small things, now now you're living life,
Yeah.
and it's bringing anxiety back. So you might think like, oh no, I'm not going in the right direction, but no, you still are. You just got to keep going through, and it's gonna drinking is just gonna be drinking.
Exactly. Yeah.
Could I tell a really funny story? This actually, so when Cesar was my client, in the very beginning, I told Cesar what to do, and I remember he was like, dude, that's it. And I'm like, no, yeah, that's it. And he's like, no, there has to be more. And like, he was like, dude, I've already done that. I'm like, dude, just do it. And he told me right away, he's like, dude, you're making my anxiety worse. Like my anxiety's gone higher. Like I paid you this money to like make the anxiety go lower. And so after that, it was you, and then there was another guy named Stacy who like said that back to back, and then I was like, okay, I need to put that in modules. Like it's normal, but what do most people do? They measure their progress based on the levels of anxiety, and it's like no, like if you're like facing like your fears or you're going back to living, anxiety will go up. Right?
Like you always mentioned to me rebound anxiety, like when you go work out. Like, and I had that a bunch. Like I would, like if I were to push myself at the gym, doing a heavy set of squats, right after a set, I'd be panicking. Like I could barely even catch my breath and horrible stuff.
And I was like, keep working out.
Yeah,
keep going, dude. Gains, bro. Summer shred.
Yeah. I got really good at just avoiding. Like whenever the anxiety was high, I did things to not make me have a panic attack. So when I joined your program, it was the first time that I just fully gave in to the anxiety, no matter what it was. And it's going to cause it to go up, just like going out with friends and drinking.
Right, drinking was the thing that really got me real like low.
Yeah. So that doesn't mean you should stop. That means,
But now I like to have a drink just to chill out.
Yeah. And, So I think that's another obstacle with our members is just we're basing, and we tell them right when they join the program, like, hey, you're not basing your days on whether the anxiety is high or low. It's how you respond. Yeah. So, and that really is just the key to it. You can have the worst day, you can have anxiety all day as long as you respond correctly. That's a step forward to recovery. And it's difficult to see that and realize that, but do it enough times and the confidence will come.
Yeah, I've always found that to be an obstacle, a major obstacle to overcome. And Ray, I would say you're kind of like one of the newest members out of this group. But you went really fast. And I know you're still on your journey, but Ray really did go pretty lightning quick. What was it? Like, what were the connections for you that kind of, now it may not feel like you went super fast, and I know it feels up and down, but like when Cesar and I look a little bit from outside, ups and downs are going to happen, but it's how quick you rebound from them. I still think you were kind of pretty quick on that. What was it for you?
I think it was kind of like Cesar. Like I stopped taking all my supplements. Like I had a whole cabin.
Tell me about that.
On diet, no carbs, and I just like really just gave in, man. Even like Maruf was talking about, like even if you feel like you're going crazy or something, just like give in, because like anxiety throws so much stuff at you, man. And like
my favorite line from Shaan is, if it is, it is.
Same. Mine got really bad was when I was my most bizarre symptom, I think, was I had a panic attack at night, and it's just like I went into this hyper awareness, and like my ears, I could just hear everything, and like I got so paranoid. And I think that's what brought on like the intrusive thoughts, and just like, man, what's going on? And like I got super like paranoid. And that was like my rabbit hole, and then I went into just all kinds of stuff, and that's when I found you. And I was like, man, I really have to just like give into this, like just all in, because I've been in so many, videos, websites, and everywhere, and I was like, I just have to like commit to something, like so. And you seem like my kind of vibes, so I was like, let me try this thing out. So.
Wait, but how is it now? Like, how do you like? Does it happen as frequently, or does it happen with the same intensity?
I feel like now that I'm throwing myself back into like work and like just life, it's like pushing back. But I keep pushing through it.
There's definitely different stages.
I even told my fiance, like, it's like if I feel like I'm getting nervous about something, I'll go out and and do it. Like this whole fear of heights thing. I went to some apartments and started running up and down like the stairs, just trying to get it like over with, and just like practicing, and like just facing it. Like why hide from it and like be afraid of it? It's like you just gotta get it over with. So I've just been barreling through it. I feel like yeah, and it's scary sometimes, but like.
And it can be confusing once you've made a lot of progress that the answer is different. I say this on the calls all the time, like the tail end of recovery, your discipline as far as responding is just as important as it was in the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
In the beginning, you really bought in because you do it and you see the progress, but then at the end, when it's just kind of lingering around and real life stressors now that would make anybody nervous is making you a little bit more nervous. You might think like, oh no, I need to do this. The answer's different, but it's still the same. So the stage that you're at right now, where you're good, you're enjoying life again, right? Maybe some things can cause anxiety to be high. The answer's still the same.
That's what trips me up too. Is like regular things that were fine before are causing me like, and I'm kind of like, come on, like what?
There's different stages of recovery.
Yeah.
Well, it's cool though too that like in those moments as well that it's because it's not really like a thing that you avoid now, right? Like you still have the clarity around it that you're still supposed to interact with it. It was something you were able to do before, and now you can still push towards it, as opposed to it's very weird because I don't know, like even for myself, I don't know how it is that I end up like making the determination of like this is an act of avoidance versus I'm just not doing that because I don't want to,
I feel that sometimes too.
And I think it's like am I convincing myself that I don't want to do it so that way I don't have to feel weird? And so it's like it's curious, I think, but I think across the board sort of like the thing that carries you through that is the consistency with it, is just like meeting yourself where you are on that day all the time. That was probably one of the more important things for myself too, is that it was like I even now that I'm like I don't know that I'm 100% out of the woods or anything like that, but significantly better than when I was like real low.
That's how I feel.
Yeah, and I still to this day like I don't really know if I'm figuring out that line correctly, but I can do it significantly better just because of the consistency, because of doing it all of the time now, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely not a short-term thing. It's long-term. Like even for people that really don't struggle with anxiety, they have to put up with a lot of stressors, and they have to just accept whatever they feel emotionally, physically, mentally, all that. And for us, maybe it's a little bit more work, but it's basically the same thing. And of course,
it is more work, I think.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, in the long run, we're the one with the advantage because we know, we've dealt with something and we've overcame it. Someone who maybe didn't struggle, and Shaan says it all the time, we do have the advantage over someone, especially with our feelings, because this can work the same with, anger or sadness, whatever. Yeah. It's just, we have a skill set now. And it takes time, Ray. It takes time to like fully get it. I mean, it just continues to get better and better. I think we're all in different stages of recovery. Even comparing me to Shaan, Shaan is far out along that I know that I'm going to learn some more things the more out I get from recovery. But it's definitely an advantage over, someone who didn't go through this.
Yeah, because the thing is that it's for a lot of people, you'll see this a lot, and then you won't be able to unsee it, which is you'll see that a lot of the problems are self-inflicted in a way. It's how they feel. And those become their own barriers. I think you will still have a lot of problems in life. And I feel like, especially if you want to do big things in life, but your emotions and your feelings won't be one of them. And that's often, I find, the biggest roadblock. Even when I started this channel, my biggest fear was, what are people going to think? Here's some guy on an iPhone. What if I get all these nasty comments? What if Reddit hates me and this and that? And I had to use the same approach with anxiety. It's like, dude, just do it. Just let it be. And I had to focus on kind of a higher purpose for me, more bigger than myself and how I felt. I was like, no, you're doing this to help people. It's not about you or what people think of you. And I don't know if somebody else who wanted to do something similar to this would have been able to do that, because they'd never really had to go through something like that. So it was one of those things where I really do feel like you're at an unfair advantage. I wouldn't want to compete with somebody who had gone through this and came out. But a lot of times it can be like a wound too, right? Like for a lot of people, I feel like they use it as a crutch, or they use it as kind of like a handicap.
It gets tied.
And they make it an
like
identity
people's
too.
identity.
Yeah.
I was like thinking the same exact thing, because that was like, I remember the first time I was having problems, like before I had like worked with you. In the past, when I had problems with it, what I thought was really interesting, like an observation that I made at that time, was just that like I was noticing that like when you're going through it, when you're making it an identity, and I was like talking to a friend who, she has lupus, so she has a chronic illness that people can't physically see. And we were talking about this idea of like, when people can't see it and you tell them about it the first time, they're sympathetic towards it, right? Like they're like, oh man, that's rough. But over time, they don't see, like, your arm's not falling off, your legs aren't broken or something like that. People can't see that you're physically in pain. It's an internal pain. And so I feel like in a lot of ways, like I was kind of like taking on this identity as a person with anxiety. And by doing that, I was also upping the extremity of like the symptoms or the feelings that I was having, because I wanted people to see that it was a problem. So I was like overacting some of these symptoms a little bit, because I was just like in pain and no one could see that I was in pain. And when you tie it into your identity, you try and map towards it. You try and become and encompass that story that you're telling yourself in your head, and it feeds into itself, and it's yet another cycle in a series of cycles that happens from getting locked into this very myopic view.
Yeah,
That's anxiety in a nutshell right there.
Yeah.
I always say what you say, what would the old Shaan do? And that's kind of what I tell myself, because I've been coming up with some crazy thoughts. Like, don't identify with this, like do what you used to do and just stick to it. And yeah, that's the biggest struggle I think that I've had, is that before this, I used to be so confident, like I felt like the world was mine, like I can travel and just like, yeah. And then now I feel like this little scared puppy, like it takes a lot from you. So you have to rebuild that. Push those boundaries and just little by little,
And you don't stop building. I mean, there was plenty of times where I thought like, okay, I'm good. The rest of my life is like this. I'm good. I'm happy. And then it just got better and better and better and better. Even today, like it just continues to get better and better. So it's just, when I was working with Shaan, it hit, like it obviously got worse, and that's where I was concerned. But then it started to get better. I was like, okay. But then I hit a roadblock where nothing was happening. And Shaan just said, hey, just keep going, just keep going. And from there, they always say time heals all, right? And maybe not in the beginning because you're doing everything so wrong, but once you get it right and under control and you're moving in the right direction, time really does heal everything. The further I get away from that first panic attack I had, the less anxiety becomes like a bad memory. And now I can confidently say, like, it wasn't really that big of a deal. And I know it's tough to hear that when you're really going through it, but yeah, man, it was just anxiety. And I'm happy I went through it. Like I said, I go back and forth I read about Claire Weeks a week after my first panic attack, and I go back and forth like, man, I should have just really just gave it my all then. But at the same time, it's like, no, I went through something. It was tough, but I'm better for it. Happy for it, because now Shaan brought me on. I'm able to help people and meet people, and it's an awesome thing.
Yeah, it's interesting because like at the time it feels like all it's doing is taking away. Yeah. Like it feels like it's constantly taking away from you. But like I can still say like this is like easily given me significantly more than it's taken away. Yeah. And with that zoomed out context, like all of the things that it took from me were things that I shouldn't have wanted to hang on to begin with. And in so many ways, like it was just a lot of like really bad behavioral patterns where it's like it's not anything that like is harmful to a bunch of people or something like that. It's a slow, quiet death of like death by 1,000 paper cuts. Like it's not a big major event or anything, but over time it tears you down in these little ways, these characteristics that you cling to for some reason. And I can't say that I miss those things that I thought were like such a big part of my personality. It's just like it's given me back so much more than it's taken away.
Yeah, and I believe that 100% because very beginning, I mean, even before anxiety, I was like a really anxious dude. Like I wouldn't go out of my way to just talk to people at school or at the workplace. And now, like, it's crazy.
Like you drove 3 hours an hour on camera?
Yeah. It's like I would like this was my first time on camera, and like back then I'd be shaking. I'd be like, I don't know. I'd be I'd probably be all red. But now it's crazy. Like I'm talking to more people, making more friends, and I'm on camera now.
It's kind of like anxiety's like that, right? In the beginning, I could tell you guys were nervous in the beginning, and then we kind of went along with it. And now you guys are starting. That's kind of like how recovery is like. You just kind of like face it. You stay with the anxiety, and I agree. I think it gives you more than at first. At first, because for me, it felt like it stripped everything. And I think part of my recovery was the frustration of the fact that it just took everything. But it gave a lot, and I felt like I was a better person because of it, but it keeps giving more. And Claire Weeks, Cesar, you brought up Claire Weeks. There's this one quote that because I was one of the reasons why it took me so long to make something to even do something like this was I still kind of did have the fear in my head. What if I fall back in? What if I create something and then I have to step away because I couldn't handle it? And, Claire Weeks did say once in her book, she was like, you'll bend in life, but you'll never break. Not again. And, I think part of the journey is just kind of rebuilding that, what we call that core confidence, where no matter where you're at, whether it's in front of the camera or, by yourself, you'll always have that sense of confidence in you. So that was just one of those things I felt like it just keeps giving. And so it's one of those things where for me, I feel like it's kind of unrelatable now because it's been so long. And I feel like Cesar, that's, and all of you guys, I think that's one of y'all's advantage actually.
And you said that to me too, when you first brought me on, but now going on almost a year now of coaching, I'm starting to see that too. It's just like, how did derealization feel? How did depersonalization feel? So again, back to just time, man, more time passes by, the less and less anxiety, like you just lose it, like to lose the memory of it, and you know what I mean. So,
and there's always more growth and development to be had. I mean, just because you're a different person prior to anxiety, and then you have anxiety, you can be a totally different person. After you recover, there's always people and things they change. And we all have the ability to go through a growth process, and I think that's what anxiety recovery is all about, is just a lot of growth and just keep doing things. The more you do, the more confidence you'll start building up.
I think a lot of people too get really I've definitely seen people that get afraid of the idea of being a different person than they were prior.
Or that you have to become this new person to recover. And
they'll sabotage it. We see it. Cesar and I see it a lot.
Yeah, and it's like even in terms of like that fear of maybe needing to become a different person in order to get out of it, that I feel like is in and of itself anxiety as well, because you're afraid of letting go of something. I remember the first time I was going through it, one of the things when I started to get better that was difficult after I came out of it is like interacting with the other people and recognizing the way that a lot of people are more committed to the things that are keeping them miserable, as opposed to doing the things that would get them out of it. And I say that like, I say that having done it myself. Like, I've also been the person to do that. And what's strange is that, like, even at the time, I think if I were to come back in time and tell myself like that same thing, I would not have listened to me.
Yep.
And so it's very interesting. Like, we kind of need to, we kind of need to connect the dots on our own.
Yeah, you just struggle a little bit.
For sure. Yeah.
It's like, yeah, because we see it a lot. To me, this is how it feels. It feels like it's a car wreck about to happen and you're seeing it happen.
Yeah.
And you can't do anything to stop it. Like that kind of like, you know, they're doing it and they're like, oh, this is not going to end up well.
Yeah.
You know, they're going to find ways to find that this is different, or that, you know, they're unique, or, you know, something else. And you just see them kind of like almost crashing. And we have to, you know, the team and I talk about that a lot. It's like, what do we do? And it's like, what can we do? You know, we can just only show them the way. You know, sometimes they need to make a couple more mistakes.
I guess it's like the same thing with training kids how to ride bicycles, right? Like, they got to fall down a couple of times, like when the training wheels come off. And it's a necessary part of the process. Like, you're going to scrape your knee. It's going to hurt. It's not going to feel good. But each time you'll figure out one little thing that you did wrong. You'll do it again, correct again, and you just keep on going through those iterations. And eventually you can ride without any support, you know?
Yeah, I think one thing that helped accelerate my recovery was I stopped reassurance seeking, because I would be on on a group just like searching through like symptoms to see if anybody else had some, and like just every night, man, I would just be double checking just to like, you know, trying to make myself feel good at the time. But like,
that's the thing. A lot of people search for instant gratification. Like, we want it now, like, and that's how our modern society is. You know, we want things fast. Like, you want a pair of nice shoes, you can go to Amazon, get it shipped to you the next day.
What's wrong with you?
It's like nobody's gonna wait around nobody's gonna wait around like a month or 2 months to get a pair. Like, no, we get it fast, you know. And people think of anxiety the same way. And that's the issue, you know.
Reassurance is part of recovery, and I think it's good at the beginning because, you know, it helps you understand that it's anxiety, you're fine, it's nothing any more serious than that. But at a certain point, it does become a crutch and resistance when you keep asking for it. So that's another you know, roadblock we have with the members is, you know, they're good, and then, you know, they come back and ask a question that's a rookie question. It's like, no, like, you know, it's anxiety.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we have that where it's like sometimes it's like they're doing well, and then they'll kind of, and when you guys would see it too if you guys saw it, which is like they're doing well, they understand the concepts, but then they'll ask a rookie question. Hey guys, anyone struggle with this? And we're like, we know what they're really asking. They're like, hey, I'm trying to escape how I'm feeling. I want to feel better right now. And so sometimes the coaches and I will give them a really blunt answer and we often won't even answer that because we know what they're really asking. It's always the subtle, like sub communication you'll see. And then when you see it in other people, it's very easy to see it for yourself in your own journey. And I think you even see it in yourself in other domains too.
I think, and I think actually one of the other domains very recently that I noticed that I stopped seeking assurance or validation was I feel like I was trying to convince people that hadn't experienced anxiety before, like what it felt like. Like, I was trying to articulate for them, like, no, like, you don't get it. It's like this. And I would try and like express it to the best of my ability to a person who's never experienced it. And I feel like in a lot of ways that was really just like another form of validation seeking, that it's like, no, I want you to understand that like what I overcame was big because I needed that or something, but only recently, like, it stopped mattering. Like, people don't have to understand it because it's fine. It was my mountain. I overcame it. It doesn't matter if anybody watched me climb it. I know I did it. And so that's been an interesting one recently, where it's like, there are just these little ways that you carry over this idea of like seeking reassurance and validation, and it permeates your life in ways that you wouldn't really see until you start going through the process of recovery.
Yeah, that's well said. And like like reassurance what we're talking about, one of the things for me was like I was always trying to see, man, who has recovered? Like trying to see like how many people here in the program have recovered fully, like so I can actually believe this is possible. You know?
Dude, yeah.
And
I told Shaan
you'd be
that.
surprised like just how many people have recovered, but they're gone.
Yeah.
You
You
know,
won't find them.
they're
Even in the
not.
mentorship, I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, I don't even know where they're at. Like,
Yeah.
they're not. Yeah.
When I joined, I told Shaan, hey, Shaan, send me referrals, send me something.
Yeah. Some testimonials. Come on.
Yeah.
Send me more.
The disappearing members, like the ones that like once.
I mean,
they're
you
good-
guys are the disappeared members
Yeah.
too. By the
Yeah,
way.
yeah,
Just
I disappeared for a
FYI.
while.
Yeah.
It always reminds me of when I'm driving home from somewhere and I'm using Google Maps and it's like I'm back in my neighborhood and I turn it off and I'm like, I got it from
Yeah.
here. Like I didn't need it the rest of the way or something. Like
No, that's so true. That's so well said.
yeah, I don't know. It's interesting.
I think that's part of it too, though, right? Like being able to trust yourself. And we see it too. Sometimes we'll see, I mean, you guys didn't do it, but we do see sometimes people not having the confidence in themselves. And they'll answer their own questions, but they want that assurance. So part of it is, I feel like no matter what stage you're at, there is a little bit of uncomfort you have to push through. I wanted to ask all of you guys, what is one advice that you would tell somebody who is in the midst of this? That was like really rough. Think about the time where it was the hardest for you. What is something you would tell that person?
That you're not in it. You're going through it. You know, you're not in this forever. You're going through it, and you just gotta trust your effort. Just trust your effort. And that's a simple thing to say, but it goes a long way, because when you're trusting your effort, you know that whatever you're putting in is gonna lead you one step closer to recovery. Absolutely.
I think mine would definitely be that like your excuses are always valid, like for the most part. Like there are a lot of really valid excuses and for why it is that you don't do things, whether you're feeling agoraphobic, you don't want to leave the house because you need that sense of control, you don't want to drive because you're having panic attacks when you're driving. All of those things, like even when I think about working out and stuff, like there are days that I'm just like I'm nauseous, I'm not feeling too good or whatever, but like the times that you're actually overcoming things, that you're building, that you're growing, it always happens when you don't want to do it but you do it anyway. That's actually facing your challenges. It's not doing things with no resistance. It's doing things when there's resistance but you keep going. That I think was probably the most important thing that I learned.
Mine would be two things. One is just once you figure out that it's anxiety, trust in it, believe in it's anxiety, and know that this isn't some life sentence. It's really just something you're going through. And when you look back, it's going to be such a short amount of time that it took from your life. And I'm starting to see that now. The second thing is once you understand and believe that's anxiety, whether you do it on your own or you find someone like I found Shaan, or we all found Shaan, truly, like I said, give in and believe that's anxiety. Practice it, be consistent. But the thing is, like what you told me, just more time. Doesn't matter how long it takes. Recovery comes when you finally just give into it. And I say this all the time on my calls. If I get a panic attack today, derealization today, that's all I'm going to tell myself. Oh, I just need some more time, because anxiety runs on its own timeline, and when you try to force it, it's not going to come. So just more time is what I would figure it out. And then once you have it down, just give yourself time.
I think blind faith, man. I think at one point, like, just, your nerves are just so high and you're asking all these questions that you don't have answers to, and you never will probably. It's kind of like, and you just have to trust, like, in yourself, like, dude, you're gonna get through this.
Major trust, man.
Yeah, that's all I had. It was like, I have to trust that I'm gonna get through this. So.
I remember our conversation. I remember you brought that up once on our chats, on our call. You was talking about faith. And because I think you said even your dad, right? Like kind of, I had to trust in faith. And I always looked at it. One of the things that I learned was faith it doesn't necessarily have to be religious, but I always define faith as the ability to go into the unknown, knowing everything will be okay. You'll figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not too religious, so it was just kind of like, you know, my dad is, so I'm just kind of like, like, am I gonna have to like dive into that? Like, what is right?
I mean, anything, man. It's like everything's so like uncertain. Life's uncertain. You can't be afraid of it.
You just gotta trust.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think there's like a lot of things that we do now culturally that kind of says like you need to know with 100% certainty before you're making a decision. I think in general we're creating like a very risk averse group, but like yeah, I don't know. Operating on that sense of faith is like a huge one. Definitely, that was like the other one in my head that I was thinking for my answer too. So I'm happy that you said it because it's like, dude, I 100% agree. It was something that like you need to jump in. You need to let go and allow it to be. It's like I don't know how many other things I've done that like you just let go and things turn out. You just kind of figure it out.
Another thing too is that I noticed that, you know, your moods, like when you're happy, you have happy thoughts. When you're sad, you typically see everything, you know, all like kind of in a negative view. But when you're anxious, you see everything. It's just like, what if? So like, I had to learn to just like pump the brakes on that. I feel like when we're younger, we live in the moment too. We're just constantly just like living life, and then when we fall into this, it's just like anxiousness, and we're just questioning everything, and it's like, yeah, that's where you gotta put faith and just like this is gonna like solve itself somehow.
And faith is only 50%, half the work. I mean, you could say you want to get better, and that's what I did for 2-3 years. Just I know I'm gonna recover. It's just I'm gonna wake up one day and it's gonna come, and that's not the truth. You have to meet faith halfway with work. So that's good. And it's cool how we all have, you know, we all went through anxiety, but we all have different ways that we fell in, and even different experiences.
Yeah.
I can say that I didn't hit rock bottom, but I was always at a high level, like every day, just avoiding. But the answer was the same for all of us on how to get out, which is good. It's universal. It's good.
And I always really admire like you, Cesar, and like actually all you guys, because you guys were still working. And again, see, this is the narcissist idea. Oh, I couldn't even work. Y'all could work. And that doesn't mean y'all was any worse than mine or any better. It was just, it's different experiences, but I've always found the truth to be universal. Like the principles of recovery are pretty much the same. And I don't know, I think I always felt like with anxiety, I didn't want it to be anxiety because I thought if it was a character flaw. I actually would have preferred at the time, I'm so glad it wasn't, that something else to be wrong, something out of my control.
Me too.
Right?
Yeah, I definitely did too, because I was like, I don't know what it was about that. I think it was like if it was something that was like happening to me, then it would be more understandable. But if it was something that I was causing within myself, I was like, oh, this is my fault. Yeah. Like this is my fault, and I put myself here. And so it's harder, but I don't know. You do the work, you figure it out, and you realize the nature of what it is as well, and you kind of answer the questions from there.
I always found it's not either or. It's not like, are you doing this or is this happening to you? I always found it as both.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I always found it as both, and that's why I always say with anxiety, it's like, you know, this isn't your fault, because I truly don't think it was any one of our faults to fall in. I think there's a lot of things from the way we grew up to not knowing what was happening to the amount of misinformation with anxiety. But I always say it's not your fault, but it's your responsibility. And I think that kind of recognizes that anxiety is within your control, which is good. I think we would all want that, right? If we don't want to feel like this, well, if it's within us.
Asking for autonomy in that situation, and it's like, you have it. It's right there for you. Right.
I think one thing too that I see is that like I know that when I had the panic attack and all this came from that. So I'm able to see a line. There's people that gradually start experiencing this over the years, and they start identifying with things. Oh, I just don't like going out. Like it's just like, but I know that there's that line. They're like, yo, this came from that day. Like after that day, everything was brought on. But now I'm able to look back and see that I've had a little bit of anxiety back then too, and I'm able to see that. But I see some people that just don't see it. They just think like, oh, it's just not my thing. It's like, no, I think you're just like you're identifying with that. It's like
Exactly, identification.
Yeah, you pretty much act on like what you believe. Like if you believe, going out is gonna like just make you anxious, then it will. It will.
It's make you superstitious too of things like
That's true.
That's great.
Man, yeah, I set a lot of timelines for myself, which wasn't good. That was like that was not a great
same
thing that I was doing at first, and I was watching an interview with James Clear where he was talking about how like people write into him a lot, like how long do you have to do something before it becomes a habit, and it was funny because he was like, well, I mean, technically forever, otherwise it's not a habit, right?
Yeah.
And like, and so this is it. It's curious because this is the same kind of thing. And he was even saying, and it was funny because I thought of you when he was talking about it, that it was the same kind of thing. Like as soon as you ask that question, you're taking the wrong path.
Yep.
As far as figuring it out, and that was something that took a minute for me. But overall, like I think I finally kind of recognized that it's like, no man, you're in this for the process. Like learn how to love each one of these days and what it is that they're going to teach you. Because when you start loving the process with anything, then you're not trying to get to the end of anything. And that's essentially like even with this, like I will not get to an end with this because it's just a daily thing that I carry with me now. And that's kind of like what
that used to scare me. That used to scare me.
Yeah.
When guys who recovery video, let me click on that. This guy recovered, and then he'll end it with like, if I have a panic attack, I'm gonna have a panic attack, and I would be like, well, if you're having a panic attack, that means you're not recovered.
Yeah.
So it's just like that used to scare me.
It scared all of us.
Now now that I'm here where I'm at today, it's like there's no timeline, recovered or not. If I have a panic attack today, I have a panic attack. It's no big deal.
Yeah, I feel like the words don't necessarily exist.
I
Because
know.
recovery isn't really.
I feel like anxiety is such a weird term in itself. But I always found one of the things I wish someone would have told me was, it's weird. Like Cesar, now you don't care about having a panic attack, and ironically, you don't really get them. So that's the thing, right? It's like, oh God, and that was a huge part. But I think it comes from that goal-oriented mindset, right? I need to run away from this. I need to run away from this.
Yeah.
And so sometimes we have to be careful on how Cesar and I in particular, like how we say things, because we know how they're thinking. And this is why I also think sometimes people say things inadvertently without realizing, and then it triggers somebody, and I think we all kind of experience that at some point.
Yep.
Right? I'm sure we have hilarious stories of people telling us something. We're like, what?
Dude, when I first joined the first call and people were sharing, that shook me. I think I wrote to you dude, what if I get worse? What if I start having all these other symptoms? Oh, what if? And he was like, dude, chill.
Just like anything, if it does get worse, it gets worse.
I felt this I was like,
that's a common thing.
Yeah,
that's a common thing, not wanting to hear anybody else's story, but
we hear that a lot.
What we see at the end of it, it's only going to be good for you because you're going to learn that it's anxiety. If you experience it, well then respond correctly or experience it, go through it, and then it's not an issue. So it's a common thing, but at the end of the day, it's good.
Yeah, man. Speaking of habits, man, like at one point I was working out 7 days a week, eating no carbs. I was to the point where if I was to go out of town, there had to be a gym at that hotel because I felt like I needed to work out and to not be this way.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, I had a point in time like that where I felt like I have to get to the gym to de-stress or and then we start thinking certain things would help our anxiety. For me, I stepped in the gym. I was like, I gotta get in the workout so my anxiety can get better somehow. But and then I started having this point in time where it actually made my anxiety worse. Like what the heck?
It's strange because it's like you can do beneficial things for the wrong reasons.
Exactly.
Working out is a perfectly healthy thing to do, but you can 100% approach it for unhealthy reasons.
Yeah.
And it's like this. I think kind of figuring out the mechanics of anxiety really helps you understand when you're approaching things with the right intentions. It's like you get the clarity around it to actually make the decisions for the right reasons, as opposed to doing it to avoid or run away from something.
Yeah. I was working out, dieting, doing Tai Chi, and meditating every day. And when I joined the program, I stopped that. And I was like, all right, if I want to like meditate in the future, it's gonna be because I want to. Not because of like I'm trying to like get this, out of my head. Like,
I did that as well too, man.
Yeah.
And I remember when I first started meditating, I felt like great, like my anxiety would dissipate, whatever, and then I would keep doing it, and then I would do it at some point, and then my anxiety came back the next day. Like, what?
You didn't meditate long enough, right? Isn't that what goes through your head then? It's like, oh, I need to meditate harder. I need to meditate longer.
Now it's like, I mean, I don't really need that, I guess. I don't do it. I mean, I know it's great. It's great. I mean, it really does, help you, chill and relax. But I mean, now it's more of a discipline thing. Like if I want to, like I have to like discipline myself to go do it.
Yeah. And it's definitely like doing it for the right reasons as well. Yeah. It's like you're not just doing it so that way you can feel calm. Otherwise, it's basically like you just never stop working out. You're just working out 24/7 so that way you don't feel anxious. Yeah, because it seems like the scale just continues going up and up and up, and I think I feel like that's a pretty easy sign to know if you're kind of more in the territory of you're doing it to avoid something. If you have to keep on increasing the amount of time that you're doing it for, I feel like that was a pretty telltale sign for me. It's like an hour isn't cutting it anymore. Now 2 hours, now 3. I'm like, it's not a good direction to go.
I kind of felt like meditating was like pouring a cup of water in a house that's on fire. Like when I was just like full blown symptoms and like it was like been like a little thing. Eventually it will put the fire out, but like it was just I was too overwhelmed, man. Like the physical and the mental, and just meditating just wasn't putting that big down there. It was just
I think it's one of the best things that you can do for yourself, like at a time that you come to it appropriately and like interact with it in the way that you're supposed to. But same thing with anything else. You approach it for the wrong reasons, it's not going to do what it's supposed to do for you.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like I see a lot of people, they're goal oriented, so they have to do certain things to reach a certain point in their life or whatever it is.
I can be happy when I get to
that. Exactly. Yeah.
We see that.
It's not a matter of like, what was I gonna say? It was like I was gonna quote something from somebody.
Could I chime in?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
So like we see it. It's actually it's one of the dangers that we really try to avoid, which is I saw something pretty ironic when I first started helping people, which was I saw people getting better, like objectively getting better. They said it themselves, I'm getting better, but their frustration was increasing. And it threw me off. I didn't know what was happening because I was like, they're getting better. Why are they getting more frustrated? And I learned painfully, which was they kept searching so they would get better, but then they would always focus on what was remaining. And they always looked at the future as salvation. And you guys have gone through the journey. It's not necessarily a finish line. This is not how this works. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things we really had to drill down was that we have to happiness isn't some part of some unattainable future. It's right now. And besides the fact of recognizing that this is anxiety, which I think is a huge hurdle, another hurdle that I think you guys all did very well was you have to get comfortable with the fact of letting anxiety be there and still having fun. Kind of like in this video, right? We were all kind of a little bit nervous before, but now it's fun. And I think that's kind of symbolic with anxiety. It's like people have a hard time because if if anxiety's there and their symptom is there, they have to, like, they can't have fun. They have to stop everything and focus on that. But recovery is being able to deal with that dichotomy. You could still have fun and have a good time and still your symptoms be raging and still be, and if you can get used to that, then I would say recovery is, then you'll be fine. No matter what, you won't fall back in.
I kind of remember one of the calls that I had with you. I think I was saying that I felt like spoiled or something, or like bratty, that I was like, oh, you're mad when you're having a bad day, what a surprise, and you're happy when you're having a good day. Like, that's super easy to do, to be happy when everything around you is going well. But like a better measure of a way to like balance yourself and like experience life and allow things to be what they are is how do you remain equanimous when you're in situations that are like really intense? It doesn't mean that you have to be perfectly calm when there's a bunch of objectively, like if your house is on fire, you shouldn't sit there calmly when that's happening. But at the same time, remaining calm is going to help you get out of that situation more so than being like, there's fire everywhere, And so it felt weird to me that I was like, that I had never made that connection before, that I was like, you get an attitude when you're having a bad day, and you're happy when you're having a good day. Like, that's not a great way to spend your life, is allowing these externalities to dictate your internal state.
Yeah. I think I remember my quote.
Okay,
so it's like, what I see in anxiety, it's like, if it's not a matter of if and when, like if I reach, recovery, when I reach recovery, then that's when I'll be happy. That's when I'll be, living life. It's a matter of here and now.
Yeah.
Like, live in the moment when you're struggling now, like here. And instead of just waiting, till that day comes, just got to keep pushing and just live in the now.
And that's when it comes.
Yeah.
That's when it comes.
Yeah.
That's true.
That's when it comes.
So with that said, we will wrap up the video here. If you really want to know more about how to actually overcome actual actionable steps that you can use today to focus on long-term freedom, I'll put a link down below to a book. This book really lays out step-by-step how to get out. This video is more about the experience of getting out, but really focusing on long-term freedom, I'll put the link down below. Furthermore, if you want to apply for mentorship, I'll also put a link down below for that. In that link, you'll fill out an application page, which we will review. And if you're a good fit, we'll invite you to the mentorship. With that said, I'll see you in the next video.